empowering you through the voice of truth with your host, Dr. Joel Hunter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Joel Hunter, host of Power Talks, empowering you through the voice of truth. On today's program, we have Tia Arie, the Executive Director of Family Promise of Orlando, and staff member Asoye Uhurube. I love that. I love her name. I love her because we are on a lot of boards and in meetings together. Just a fantastic person. And also we have Julie Wardell, who's a volunteer with Family Promise from St. Margaret Mary Catholic Church. And all of these will give us a glimpse into those who struggle with homelessness and the unique way Family Promise serves them. So thank you for being, I love what you do, and I want everybody to know what you do. And so Tia, let me come to you first. Can you give us kind of a brief history of Family Promise, how it originated, kind of what its purpose is?
Sure. Well, Family Promise started in New Jersey in the late 1980s. It was at a time when the thought of a homeless family was inconceivable. And people, actually the founder was commuting through Grand Central Station from Summit, New Jersey, and she ran across a woman, which she hadn't seen, and she was doing this ministry to homeless people in Grand Central Station. But she found out this woman had a family and was so shocked by meeting her and hearing her story that she went home to her community and started pulling together people from the faith community, clergy and lay leaders, and said, we have to do something. This is ridiculous. How can there be homeless families in the United States of America? And so they started to look to build a shelter, a fixed site shelter. And they went through a lot of the communities, went to zoning boards, and nobody wanted this shelter in their backyard. But not to be deterred, these determined clergy and lay people said, you know what, we have churches and synagogues right in our community that are vacant most of the time in the evening. Why don't we have the families come and stay in our church or synagogue? And that's what they did. They basically opened their doors and they convert classrooms or meeting rooms into bedrooms where families can stay. They determined that they would have to transport people from one place, like the offices of the organization, to each of these host churches. So they purchased a van, and because the van had 14 seats, they said, okay, well, we can only serve 14 people at a time. So the program to this day serves 4 families or 14 people at a time.
Oh, how about that? Let me break in because I want the audience to know that in Central Florida, only 20% of those who are homeless are what we call chronic homeless. They have some form of disability. They're individuals who either have a physical disability, mental disability, a developmental or addiction disability. 80% of our homeless are families. And so this program that deals with families is so very important to the majority of homeless in our area. So let me come to you because you've been there. You were for a time in your life homeless.
I was.
And when that happened, you had a family?
I had a family, and I had been a service provider. I moved to Florida to start over and found myself homeless. Rented a house that I paid for a year. That house wound up being in foreclosure, and my family didn't know. And on a Saturday morning, as I'm getting up, getting my family ready, the sheriff was at the door, and we had to vacate immediately.
Oh, my goodness.
So with my children, and about 15 years in serving homelessness, my family was homeless.
So you were a professional.
Yes.
Who became homeless because of the circumstances.
Yes.
And what, as you're serving these families, what, could you give us an example like of a family that you've seen or that you've identified with where because of the circumstances, it was totally unexpected, it was not cyclical, it's just one of those life events that puts you in that situation.
The family that comes to mind is a family that we recently, as an organization, just benefited in a way that's totally outside of kind of what we do. The mom and 2 children are living in the shelter. The mom has a great job. She's in the medical field. Kind of similar circumstance happened to her, and her husband left. He didn't stay with the family. So 2 boys, one a senior, just graduated from high school. He had an opportunity for a full ride scholarship at a university, but they were in the shelter, and they lost communication with the school. Thus, he almost lost the scholarship. So during a case conference of talking about creating a plan for them to get back to self-sufficiency, the mom started crying, and she says, you know, nobody in my family graduated from high school.
Wow.
My son graduated with honors and has a full scholarship, but if we're not there next week, he's gonna lose it.
Oh my
And immediately, I go call the school. I ask her the name of the school. I'm calling the school. I'm like, listen, this family has a situation. They're like, if you're not here by Friday, and it was Wednesday, he can't come. So I sent an email to every email address I could find at the university. The president of the school emailed me back in a couple of hours. I went to Tia and I said, Tia, we need the van. We got to drive to Tennessee. This kid's going to school.
Awesome. I love
And
that.
we drove that family to Jackson, Tennessee, to Lane University. He got his scholarship. We helped him with some of the tuition that they would have had to pay. I advocated for him. He got work study. He's on campus, and the mom is working. We just found her an apartment yesterday. So, yeah, that's the thing that Family Promise does.
What a great story.
Yeah.
You know, I've often said, I quote Tolstoy, who, the beginning sentence in Anna Karenina is, every happy family every happy family is alike. I'll have to go back and read that. But each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way.
Absolutely.
And so every family has a story, and they're fascinating stories. And there's not one, you know, just set answer, you know, for remedies. Julie, let me come to you, because I think the backbone of every successful program is volunteers.
Yeah.
There has to be incredible leadership, but the ones who make the difference, the personal difference, and the needed details are the volunteers. You've been doing this for how long?
Just about 3 years now.
Okay, 3 years.
3 years.
And how did you get involved?
I was introduced to Family Promise back in 2015. The organization was hosting its very first annual fundraiser, which is a breakfast. And I was asked to attend, which, you know, I did so willingly, because I was, at that point, I have young children. At that point, I think my boys, I have 2 of them, were 6 and 9. And I started to see something in them that, as a mom, as a parent, discouraged me, discouraged my husband, sort of the I wants and needs, and, you know, just the general mindset that, you know, the bubble that they lived in was simply it, and, you know, maybe that they needed to think beyond that bubble. So I was looking for something in the community that felt like we as a family could get behind. And so I attended the breakfast. There was a woman who spoke on their behalf and told her story as to where she started and where she had landed, and I was moved by her story, by her family, the photos of her and her family on the screen behind her as she spoke. So I thought to myself, this is a group that I could see myself getting behind, that I could see introducing to my children, because I did want to have something that they could participate in.
Yeah.
So my church is an active parish with this organization, and I had heard about the organization through the church, but hadn't really learned too much beyond that. So I started volunteering by bringing meals to my church during the weeks that the families were hosted at the parish. And then what I started to see more, though, because we have over 4,000 families that volunteer and are a part of our church. There were weeks when the families were being hosted at the day center, which is the offices, because there are a certain amount of parishes that participate in the program, in the shelter program. And during the weeks that there were no parishes that were available, they were coming to the day center. And I was bringing my children, and we were bringing meals. And I would say the most beneficial part for us was simply just sitting down at a meal and talking to the clients.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Talking to the clients.
The key, one of the things I love about this program, and Tia, I'm coming to you next because I want you to describe kind of how the program operates.
Yes.
But one of the things I love about this is that it is very personal.
Yes.
It not only it doesn't focus so much on transactional needs as relationships, and the relationships benefit not only those in need but those who are helping,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
And I think it changes the people that are helping the most, because we
Yeah.
come into this like we're going to help a family,
Right.
but it's reciprocity, because as we're helping them heal, we're healing too, and
Yeah.
that keeps the healing going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've been in the
Exactly.
program so long. I know children that volunteered, like Julie's children, that have gone on to careers in public service and building affordable housing and all kinds of things because of the experience that they
Yeah.
had as a child with Family Promise.
Isn't that that's
Right.
that's inspirational? Tell us a little bit about how this works. How the program works.
Sure. We have 12 host congregations, and it takes about 50 volunteers from the congregation to provide hospitality for the week. So there are a few volunteers that will donate and prepare a meal and bring it to the congregation. And then there are 2 other volunteers that will be evening hosts, is what we call it. And they're just there to lend a listening ear and provide support to the young mom who's got a little baby and wants to try and get some dinner. And then there are 2 volunteers usually that spend the night with the families in the congregation. Each congregation has a lead person that we call the Family Promise Coordinator, and they sort of manage the program and recruit volunteers within their own congregation.
Great. Now, so there are how many people involved at one time?
About 50. There are 50 slots for volunteers.
Okay,
a
but
week.
but how many families are
Four-
hosted?
4 families at a time.
4 families at a time are hosted. Okay, very good. So, what are some of the challenges that you face with these families? I mean, you've been at this quite a while. You've got long experience professionally. What are some of the, this is a incredible ministry of hospitality, but as you get to know these people, you gave us that great example of that, the challenges for that kid. As you see some of the rest of the families, and Julie, you can chime in on this too, because I know you and your family have also had these conversations. What are some of the challenges they face so that people can really, have an insight into these families and what they're going through?
I think the largest challenge that the families face is that we look at it from our lens and our lives, that they just need housing. If we
Yeah.
just get them housed.
Yeah.
And that's just a micro grain of the big problem.
Right.
A lot of them don't realize that the traumas that they've experienced in their lives are at the root of the problems. And when you're talking about fixing that and working on that from a holistic approach and not just a financial approach, they don't see the need. And as service providers and as doing this day in and day out, that if you don't address the root of why they became homeless, which is sometimes generational poverty, traumas, things that they've endured, lack of skill sets, if you don't address those things, then it's just a cycle. So as a service provider, that's the largest challenge, because we're there with the hospitality and we're loving and we're welcoming and we have all these resources and tools, but the root of it has to be addressed.
Before I go to Julie, let me follow up on that. Do you have a network of other providers that you refer folks to for specific needs or support?
We do. We work with a lot of the other community. We're part of the continuum of care. So there are many other agencies that provide employment services, mental health services, educational training.
Great.
And we also have within our organization the Seeds of Change, which is a group that we do every Tuesday night that helps the clients write a life plan. And so we go back kind of regression therapy to address the traumas that have happened sometimes all the way in childhood that they don't remember
Yeah.
because they've blocked them out and so many things have happened.
Yeah.
And through that process, they are able to connect those pieces. And we've seen some really beautiful things happen where one of our clients is now employed as the van driver after going through the program and
that's
being in
great.
the shelter, and she's housed and independent of subsidy. So addressing those traumas connect the missing pieces that create the foundation for self-sufficiency.
That's fantastic. Julie, let me come in. What you were going to, I heard
Well,
that breath.
I was just going to say that, we've talked about the Family Promise, the shelter program that's within congregations, but you can't be providing shelter as long as we have without realizing that there's so much more that needs to be done
Yeah.
than just providing shelter.
Yeah.
So Family Promise has kind of jumped at the opportunity to get involved in other programs that allow us to expand our services.
Okay.
So while we're only serving 4 families in this shelter program, we serve approximately 100 families by being a part of a collaborative rapid rehousing project. And those families sometimes come through our shelter, or they're coming through other shelters within the continuum of care, or we're housing them directly from a homeless situation, like living in their cars.
Yeah.
And we can put them directly into housing and then provide these services. So we have a staff of case managers that works with every family in all of our programs.
Good, yeah.
And this Seeds of Change program is open to all these families.
Okay,
So instead of just 20 families or so that we can serve in a year in the shelter program that we've described, we'll serve over 100 families over the course of a year.
Helpful. That's helpful information. Okay, Julie, I've given you enough time to think. I can't remember my original question, but
No.
tell us about your interchange with some of these families.
You know, I would tell you that our experience with Family Promise has been mostly through the shelter program. So we interact as a family with the shelter clients on a regular basis. One that comes to mind is a single mother. She was in the program last year for close to a year. Five boys, ranging in age from, I believe the littlest was 4 or 5 months when they started, ranging up to 17 years old. And so she had her hands full.
Wow, yeah, oh my goodness.
And so this was a family that my family and I interacted with on a very regular basis.
Because you've got 2 boys also.
I have 2 boys,
Yeah.
so we can relate.
Yeah.
And when my boys were in, all they wanted to do was just spend time with her boys. They related with all of them. They related with the oldest because he was, of course, the oldest brother, so, had that big brother persona, and was just kind to my kids and talking to them quite a bit about his experiences in high school, and down to the youngest, 4 months old, I had my 8-year-old toting him around, on a regular basis. But what I can tell you is she was an amazing person. I would sit with her and I would just talk to her about everyday things, talk to her about the struggles of motherhood, and talk to her about trying to find work that suited her and would benefit her children, and going from week to week in the various shelters. But here's the thing, she always had the best perspective. She never seemed to let it get her down.
Yeah.
And I was always flabbergasted by
Yeah,
that. How
yeah.
in the world are you in this situation and you're just so positive?
Yeah.
So fast forward, she is in housing. She's in a wonderful career path. Her boys are doing well. Her oldest is a senior in high school, and fingers crossed is a football player, and is hoping for a full ride to a college very soon. So she's experiencing that. The youngest just turned 2, and she is just thriving. I check in on her on a regular basis, and it just makes my heart happy to see how well she's doing and how well the program served her.
This family is so amazing that at Christmas time, they had moved into their home. And all the volunteers are giving them gifts and taking all these things. And she'd call us and say, I'm coming to donate gifts to the family at the shelter.
That's right.
So she, for days, she would just come and bring gifts and gift cards and food. And she said, I'm fine. My family's fine. Now I want to give back and help the other
You
families.
reap what you sow.
That's
That's
right.
fantastic.
That's right.
One of the things that you said, and that all of you have been intimating, is that these normal conversations, you know, help remind us that these are people that are hopefully refusing to be defined by their past traumas or by their present circumstances.
Right. It's an experience.
They're going through an experience. They need to be seen as people. All of us need to be seen as
Absolutely.
people and not be defined by the category we happen to be in.
Sure.
So the conversation is very important. I have another fairly important question. If somebody's listening to this, you know, and they're a part of a congregation, or they're wondering, I wonder what they need. I love this. I love this whole concept of a congregation hosting a homeless family. I know that you may need a couple more, but you're always kind of open to congregations that might be open to this. What type of training does a congregation need to go through, or is this kind of a, you know, plug and play program where you can go anywhere and just, you know? Well, I mean, what would congregations consider?
Sure. There's an advantage to being part of a national organization. This program is used by 6,000 congregations across the United States, and we have it's a prepackaged program, so it's very easy to plug in.
Okay.
And we have training materials. We provide training. There's a whole process that I go through in introducing a congregation to the program and helping the missions people or the pastor introduce the concept to the congregation, and then how you move from that step to, yes, agreeing that we want to be a host congregation, and then providing training for volunteers that actually say, okay, that's for me, I do want to be a part of this. So there's a bit of a process involved, but it's a tried and true process, and
right.
we've done it many, many times.
So you don't have to come in with any expertise. It's just a matter of we have willing hearts.
Exactly.
And if you don't have the facility, you can be a support congregation.
That's-
Just bring meals
Yeah.
or just come and spend time, help with homework. Just be a family involved or
Yeah.
a congregation involved. You don't have to host.
Yeah, that's really key, Zoe, because I'm more and more acquainted with the network of house churches or smaller congregations, and many times they want to help. They're the most relational people,
Yes.
you know, but they don't feel like they have, you know, the finances or the facility capacity to really be of assistance. So that's very important.
We have a group that comes on Tuesday night. They're a small church. They come every Tuesday night. The mother board of the church gets together. They cook all day Tuesday, and they bring a meal. They bring the younger people to be with the children while we host groups. So they come, they donate. During the week, they'll come and drop off sweets or snacks. It's just the human connection.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
And we're moving a lot of families into housing, and so we often are doing drives to get move-in kits for families that move into housing.
Oh,
so that's
good.
really helpful
yeah,
too.
Very.
And from the volunteer perspective, Family Promise does a monthly tour of their day center and facilities. So for anyone who's interested in simply volunteering, this is a great way to be introduced to the organization. And information about that can be found on the Family Promise website.
Okay, that's great. We've got about 2 minutes left, but I want to hear, you guys smile a lot. I like that. You know, how is it working with each other? What kind of team do you have?
Oh, Atoye is fabulous, as you know, as program manager, and we have a great team of case managers that are working with her. We have a good time.
Yeah.
We do. I've done this a long time, and I've had a few leaders. And I have to say that working under Tia has helped me to tap into the spiritual realm of the work that I do.
Good.
She comes with her heart, and she doesn't just talk the talk, but it's truly a spiritual mission that we do, and it's beautiful. So I love working under her. And the volunteers, like, they come in and they changed my mind as a provider about the work that I do. So I have a wonderful team of people that I love to show up to every day.
Oh, that's so great.
We do say the volunteers are kind of the heart of Family Promise, and they hold us accountable
Yeah, they
to how we treat families.
Yeah.
Really.
They
Because they
remind
have a
us.
personal relationship with our families.
Well, it is so easy because you're hired as a staff with professional expertise and capabilities. It's so easy to slip into a role. And when you are working closely with volunteers, as well as closely with these families, you know, you remember, now this is about relationships.
Yeah.
It's all about relationships. And so it's great to be able to see what you guys have been doing. By the way, I know you won't sleep tonight until I get this quote right. I know I won't. All happy families are alike, but each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way.
Oh, yes.
And the fact that you do have these 4 families that you can see as individual families, and you can get to know them, and you can see the dynamics. So there's not just a mass, gathering, is all to the advantage of everybody, you all included. So thank you for coming on,
Thank you.
Tia,
Thank
Asoya,
you.
Thank you
Julie.
for having us.
Golly, thank you. This is so exciting. It's such a great program. And I want to thank you for joining us on Power Talks. I want you to remember that these discussions are just that. They're discussions among us, but we'd love to see you continue the discussions at home or go one step further, get involved, because when Power Talks, you are empowered through the voice of truth. See you next time.
You just watched Power Talks, a Good Life 45 original production that makes you part of our Hope Team here on Good Life 45, where hope happens.